to share. Set your goals high, see the sky's the limit. It's nothing but a game, so go out and win it. Be a team leader and be proactive. Don't be afraid to work a little magic. We all represent the Georgia forestry, so it's all on you and it's all on me to save our future and save our trees. Leave our children with something to see. Believe.
All right, so now we're recording. So first step we're going to do is we're going to have a template to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into ArcGIS Online right here. Click on groups. And there's a group here that you should all belong to called ArcGIS Pro Templates and Packages. Just a little bit there. And when you click on that, there's several. Are we
supposed to be doing that, or are we just watching?
Just watch for now. I'm just going to record this and just go through it step by step, just so you can see the big picture of what we're going to be doing. So there's a package here called ArcGIS Pro for Forest Management 2.1. This is just a template. I'm going to download this to my computer. All right, and I've already got it downloaded, so we're not going to get into that. So I've downloaded it right here. I got a scratch folder here. That's my template. What I'm going to do is open this template, and I'm going to open it through ArcGIS Pro. To do that, first thing I'm going to do is open Pro. So all right, I'm going to open up a new project. There's a folder, there's a button over here that says select another project template. These are all the other maps I've been working with to start with, but I'm going to open it up project template. Now I'm going to browse to that template I downloaded. I'm going to give the project a name. We're going to call this John Doe. That's going to be my landowner. I'm going to save this project in my scratch folder, and it's going to create a new folder by default because I got this box checked. So all right, so here's the template. So the template comes by default with a few web layers here that you can use for mapping. You can also work with local data, your local layers that you have stored on a computer. All these layers here are stored online. These are good to work with. You can adjust the symbology however you want to. This right here is your forest stewardship track boundary layer. This is the track boundary layer that when you upload polygons to ArcGIS Online for stewardship plans, that's that layer. So if you make your maps with this, using this tool with this layer, you don't have to upload your polygons because you've already done it basically. So to kind of give you an idea of some other things, here's a couple of templates that come with it. These are pre-configured or layouts, I should say. The good thing about Pro is you can load as many of these into it as you want. You can also add several maps. I could have 3, 4, 5 different maps. So if I wanted to make a stewardship plan and have a soils map, have a different types of maps for your landowners, or have all your maps for the entire landowner, for one landowner into one ArcGIS Pro project, you can. And actually, I would probably recommend doing it that way. All your maps would be stored over here. This is the catalog pane right here. If you open your map document up and this isn't here, you can click on this view tab right here and click catalog pane, and it opens it right up. Shows all the maps that you have stored. There's a custom toolbox here. Automatically gives it the name of your landowner or whatever the name of your project's going to be. We've got a few custom tools you can use to kind of help you go along. Databases. So in ArcGIS Pro, you're not really, shapefiles don't work too well in ArcGIS Pro. You can load them and you can work with them, but they get real clunky. So in Pro, we're moving over to geodatabases. Some of you probably heard of geodatabases, some maybe haven't. Geodatabase is just a container where you're going to store all your GIS data for a project. Inside here, so for example, so Pro, when you create a project, it creates a geodatabase for you and gives it the name of your project by default. Stores it in a folder, and it's just a blank geodatabase. Also, I've got my default geodatabase. I use my default geodatabase as like a scratch database. So basically, you know, any of you have ever done some serious mapping, especially back at school where they give you a project and you got to make a GIS layer, but you got to go through several steps to make it and generate a bunch of junk layers. I store all my junk layers in my default geodatabase, and at the end of the day, I delete everything in it. It's just a way to keep the data clean on your computer, and anything that I really want to keep, I keep in my project folder here. So within a geodatabase, you can create. Instead of creating shapefiles, you're going to create what's called a feature class. So all you got to do is right-click on your geodatabase and go to New. Instead of saying shapefile, it's going to say feature class. This is just a glorified shapefile, basically. A feature class can hold a lot more data than a shapefile can. It's got a few more bells and whistles, like, for example, if you wanted to create a drop-down list in your attribute table, instead of manually entering in data all the time, you can create a drop-down list. So in a lot of ways, they're better. For right now, I'm going to leave this blank. We'll get to this later. You also, in this project, you got a few server connections. Within these server connections, you got access to the NAIP imagery for the entire state of Georgia. So if I go back over to my map, well, one, I've got false color 2017 NAIP imagery sitting right here. I can turn this on, and it's going to load 2017 leaf phone infrared imagery for the whole state of Georgia. If I want to add just regular 2017 NAIP imagery, I can expand my server here. And obviously it's going to take a second with the internet. But yeah, and you see right there, and I can zoom in and see the data and stuff. We're not going to get into that right now. Here's the NAIP image server that you're connected to. You can expand the NAIP folder here, and it's got all the imagery for the entire United States in it. So I've got everything in Georgia right here that you can just add to your map really quick. We're not going to do that right now since we're just going through a tutorial. Also, you've got different folders that you're connected to. Right now, I'm only connected to the folder that I'm storing this ArcGIS Pro project in. If you wanted to connect to another folder in your computer, you could just right click and add a folder connection and, you know, connect to, I'll just connect to my scratch folder here. So now I have a quick and easy way to get to another folder within my computer without having to navigate through a whole bunch of different things. Also, and you can also go through these folders, and if you got data stored in here, you can grab it and throw it onto your map really quick. The other way to add data to your map is this add data button. If you want to change base maps, you got a base map button here where you can change your base maps. All right, so that's just kind of the beginning. Also, you've got your analysis tools right here. If you got all your tools just like you do in ArcGIS, an ArcMap sitting right here. So you can use all these as well. So right now, let's go all these layers again. These are online layers, and I'm going to use these for this demonstration. I'm going to show you how to make a quick stewardship map and put it into a layout and then export it as a PDF. First thing I'm going to do, step by step, is I have a KML layer I just downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and throw that onto my map. I've got one stored here, feature KML. I'm going to add to my map. And here it is showing up down here. I'm going to right click on it and zoom the layer. And here's my KML layer. This is my property boundary and whatnot. So this layer being a KML, you can actually load KMLs now into Arc Pro, but they're just view only layers. They're read only. You can't do anything with them. They're just there for reference. To be able to use this layer, I need to import it into a geodatabase or into a feature layer that's stored in ArcGIS Online. And that's what I'm about to do now. So for this, I'm going to import this into my property boundary layer, and also into my polygons layer. So to do that, it's pretty simple. You have to import this into a geodatabase first to be able to use it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is import it. Import feature class. I'm going to import it, and it's named Screven County, Georgia polygons, showing up down here. I'm going to put it in my geodatabase. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this John Doe _ track, no spaces. And I'm going to click run. Okay, so it adds it back to my map. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete my KML layer. Get it off the map. I'm going to select my feature class here. I'm going to go over here to this copy button. I'm going to copy it. And then this paste button highlights. I'm going to click the drop down arrow and go to paste special. And I'm going to paste it into my property boundary layer, which is showing up down here at the very bottom. Hit OK. So it's pasted into there. You can see it showing up. I'm also going to go ahead and select it one more time. And I'm going to paste it into my stands layer. And I'm just going to pick one for now. We'll adjust the symbols later. All right. I got labels turned on by default. When we calculate acres, those are going to change. So now that I've got this layer imported into these web layers, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this layer right here. All right. So clear my selection, edit. So now we're going to go back and do it offline. Offline meaning that we're working with data that's stored on your computer rather than on the web. Remember how I created this John Doe track layer? Grab it, add it to your map. There it is right there. This is going to be my property boundary layer. If I want to rename it, I can rename it by going right-clicking, going to Properties, and going and naming it. I just like to name my stuff Property Boundary. All right. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to make my stands layer out of it through my geodatabase. So all I got to do is right-click on it, go to Copy. And then right-click and paste. So this creates a brand new John Doe Track 1. I'm going to rename this, call this John Doe Stands. And I'm just going to grab it, drag it, add it to my map. I'm going to bring my property boundary up to the top. I'm going to double click and change the symbols. Here's my symbology. Click on properties, go to appearance, no inner color. We're going to have an outline of about 2. There we go. Hit apply. All right. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is now I got my John Doe stands here. Yes, we want to go ahead and do that. If you want to adjust the transparency of one of your layers, what you can do is select it right here. Go up to this appearance tab. This is your transparency bar where you can make it a little lighter so you can see what's going on underneath. So let's just go ahead and do that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do just like we were doing before with the online layer, except we're doing it offline now. I'm going to turn my property boundary off. Hit the edit tab here. Hit the split tool. Select the layer I'm wanting to cut. And start cutting. Decided to cut a few more out this time. But you know, that's just how things are when you're training. Up and down arrows are really good for panning your map around. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my attribute table here for my stands layer. I imported a polygon, a KML layer, and when you import a KML layer, it gives you all this extra stuff. I'm going to select it all. Hold the shift key down. I just like clean data. Clean my data up. You got to leave your length and area and shape here by default. That's just how geodatabases work. They require these fields. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to create a new field. So to do that, you see this add button? I'm going to click this add field button. And I'm going to add a field, and I'm going to call it stands. And I'm going to make it as text field because we're going to give it stand names. Hit save. Done. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to select each one of them. So I'm going to select this first one here. Well, it might be better just to select it from right here. All right, close that field out. So we'll start from top to bottom. So this first one, I'm going to call this longleaf. This next one, I'm going to call this slash. We'll call this, we'll just call that open field for right now. This lolly. Lolly. And we will call that cropland. All right. So now I got all my different stand types. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to calculate acres. So to do that, what we're going to do is, I think this tool will work for this. So what we're going to do is well, you don't have to select everything. I'm just going to go calculate acres and perimeter. Go ahead and hit the save button up here when you're editing mode. Hit save, otherwise your calculate acres tool doesn't work. Select my layer. We're going to go John Doe stands, coordinate system, NAT 83 UTM zone 17. When you select when you're navigating and finding your layer, right click on it and save to favorites. There'll be a button over here to the right hand side. You just right click and save to favorites, and that way it's in your favorites tab so you can always have quick access to it. Click run. And what this tool does, you don't have to actually add an acres field or perimeter field to your attribute table. It adds one for you. So now that I've done that, I right click on my John Doe stands layer, open attribute table. You can see I have an area geo, area and perimeter. This is acres and perimeter in feet. So you've got those fields, and if you wanted to change the name of them, you could do that pretty easily by clicking on the fields tab. This shows all the fields. You have an alias here where I could go acres, and then I really don't care about perimeter geo. I'm just going to leave that like it is, but that's how you change it. So now you got really all the fields that you need. You got your stand types, and you got your acres. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to symbolize them. So now to symbolize your stands layer, you right click on it, go down to symbology. We're going to symbolize by unique values. That means by one of the field names in your attribute table. So you right click on it, we're going to select stands. So here they are right here. They all pop up, and also you also have an option here that says all other values. This is also going to show up Here it is right here. I don't want that in my map. To get rid of it, there's this little more button here. Click on this, scroll down to the bottom, and show all other values, uncheck. Now what you could do is go through all these and change the color to whatever you want them to be. And I'm just picking random colors right now.
Can you do line and textures?
I sure can. So you want to do like a crosshatch or something, you can, instead of just having solid colors, you can click on this little button right here in the middle. Solid stroke, solid fill. You can change this to like a hatch fill. And then the thing about this is that you can do any kind of little tweaks and twerks to your symbols. You can take your lines, move them closer together, change the angle of them, change the pattern, you see right here. So you can do stuff like that. I won't get into all that. That's just something you have to play around with. Change the strokes. Hit the apply button. And then I'm just going to leave slash how it is. And again, we'll just pretend like this is my stands layer. If I want to adjust the transparency, I'm at 60. I'm going to lower that back down to something like that. That's entirely up to you how you want to symbolize. Turn my property boundaries back on. Now, I want to generate labels. Labels, there are some examples in this form that I sent out to you of how to do this. It's a little bit of coding, but it's very minor. Once you do it a few times, it won't be bad. You'll like it. So really about 4 or 5 times, you'll get used to it. It's not a big deal. You can always refer to this for those examples. So let's generate some labels. I'm going to label each of these stands with the acreage. Right click, and you've got label and labeling properties. Let's click on labeling properties. Also, something you're going to notice is that when I edit different things or try to do different things, different tabs are also going to pop up here. I have a labeling tab by default also. New tabs will pop up when I'm doing other things. So that's just something to be aware of. You can make adjustments up here or in your properties pane down here. So what I want to do is I want to generate labels that show the acreage to 1 decimal place with the word acres after it. So to do that, you got to write a little expression. The language is called Arcade. Don't worry about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate acres. I want to round my acres to 1 decimal place. You see these functions right here? There's all sorts of different ones you can choose from. I don't know what all of them do, but I know what a few of them do. There's one in here for round. If you scroll down, you'll find it. It's somewhere in here. There's a function. You click right here, go round, parentheses, comma, 1 decimal place, 2, add, the add sign, quotations, do a space, because you want a space after your number, acres, close quotations. Don't panic over that. That looks like a lot, but the examples are right there in that sheet I sent you. Type it a few times and you'll love it. And then once you get an understanding of how this works, you can make all sorts of crazy labels. Hit apply. Then I right click on my stands layer right here. I got to turn my labels on right here. There they are. I don't like the color. I'm just going to go ahead and make it a white color. I love halos. You can go down here, turn halos on, just select something, and then you can change the color right here. I'm going to leave halos off for right now, but they are a good tool to use. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. I am going to put halos in there. I'm going to make my color black, and I'm going to make my halo a white color. There we go. Nice and pretty. That's how you label. Label it. Over here, I've got my stands layer. I'm going to, I don't want this. This is what's going to show up in my legend. I don't want John Doe stands showing up in my legend. I want just stands layer showing up. So I'm going to go to properties and rename this. All right. So there's my map. I got labels. I got my acreage labeled. I've got my stand types going. I've got the stuff I want to show up in my legend. Let's go ahead and make a map.
I think your legend going to say stands.
I'll show you how to fix that in the when we add the legend. Yes, it will initially. So let's add this to a layout. I'm going to use a portrait layout up here. Here's the template right here. So what you want to do, the first thing we want to do is we want to add our map to it. To do that, here's your layout mode. You've got different tabs when you're in layout mode. Click this insert tab, and you've got this thing. We want to insert a map frame. Click on the drop down. You have a default here. What the default does, it adds your map, but it adds it at the world view, extent. So you don't want that. If you click over here, this right here is your current extent. Right now I'm at 1 in 11,000. Let's add this. And what this does is adds my map exactly how it looks in my in my map over here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and space it out. All right, and obviously it covers everything up that I've been working with, right? So the reason is all your different map elements are over here in this little contents pane when you're in layout mode. My map frame is up at the very top. Let me grab this and drag it to the bottom, and that puts it down at the bottom. So now we're good with that. Say I don't like how my map is situated. I can't actually move it. If I do without moving the whole frame, undo. So to be able to move, to pan this map around, what I need to do is well, first of all, before I do that, I don't want to be able to move my frame around anymore to keep from actually doing that. You see these little locks up here? Let's go ahead and lock it. So now I can't move it. But if I want to pan this map inside the frame, I just right click on my map frame and click activate. So clear. Click on the map tab right here, hit explore, adjust it, zoom in and zoom out with my mouse. And then when I'm done, click this layout button right here. Done. Let's go ahead and hit the save button right here. All right, so that's how you do that. Next thing I want to do is I want to adjust my scale bar down here. This scale bar, right as it sits, for some odd reason, it doesn't know what it's looking at. It's just a static scale bar. In other words, it's just a picture right now. We need to add on. It doesn't know that there's a map right here, so we need to tell it that there's a map right here. And to do that, you got to click on the scale bar over here on the left-hand side. Right click and go to properties. These are some of your properties for your scale bar. Right now, no map frame, it's blank. Let me add the map frame. So what that does is you can see when I did that, it adjusts it to whatever this extent is. So we're good here. Now what I want to do, I don't know if you noticed, but when I clicked on my scale bar, 2 new tabs popped up here at the top. I've got a format tab where I can adjust all sorts of different things with this, change the different scale bar that I want, and I've got the design tab. Right now, 2 things I'm going to work with, or a few things. I've got it set to feet, which is what I want. Number of divisions is 5, but I'm only at 50 feet for every division. Obviously, that's not high enough. I'm going to change that to, let's go 250 feet. Hit the enter button. Spaces it out a little more. I think I could use a little bit more. Hit 5, up 100. That's a little bit better. And so I've got so there you go. Then I can also right click on this scale bar. We can go to align to page, right click again, align to center. And that'll center it. Now title, I want to give it a title. Obviously, and when you're done with it, when you're happy with where it's sitting, go ahead and lock it over here so you can't accidentally move it. Title, let's give my title a name. You can double click on it. Expand the text right here. We'll call this John Doe property. Expand that. That's all there is to that. You've got your north arrow. You can change that if you want just by clicking on it, and or you can delete it and you can click on this insert tab and you can insert north arrow, new scale bar, whatever you want to add, new text, dynamic text, which we'll talk about after a while. Go ahead and give your credentials right here. This is going to be your, double click on this, your name, who you work for, the date, coordinate system, that kind of stuff. And there's some dynamic text right here if you wanted to automate, like if you wanted your date to change to be today's date every time you open the map. There's some dynamic text you could add into here where it automatically changes, but we won't get into that right now. I don't remember what today's date is. Yeah, I do. 21st, 2018. Coordinate system, we'll just go NAD 83. Done. And I'm trying to think, is there anything else I forgot to mention to y'all for this? This is my map. Everything else seems to be pretty good. If you want to add more stuff, you could. Oh yeah, we're missing a legend. The legend is not in this layout by default. The reason being is I find it that it's a lot easier to just add a new legend instead of trying to configure one that's already in the map. It's kind of a pain. So what we'll do is we'll add a legend real quick. So I'm gonna click legend, draw a box. There's my legend right there. Now what I'm gonna do is adjust it so you can see it better. Here it is right here, it pops up. And also, again, it gives you another tab up here. We're not gonna worry about this right now. I'm just gonna right click on it right here and go to properties. And first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it a background. So up here at the top, I'm gonna click right here, legend, I'm gonna click on background, click on this properties tab. Click on this little paintbrush right here. We'll just do, let's try to mimic that blue that I got going on. Something like that. All right. So there's a little bit of a background. It's not, one thing I don't like about this is that it is kind of the background is way too close together than what I like to my elements, to my text. So I'm going to try to space that out a little bit. Go back into it real quick. That's it. I got it docked. So I'm gonna go ahead and give myself a border too. So when I open up my legend, actually clicking on this is a little bit better. This little third paintbrush looking document thing right here. Let's give ourselves a little bit of a black border. About like that. Let's space it out. These gaps, this is gonna space out my legend, my background, and my border. I'm gonna give it let's give it a 10. That's 10 points or 10 pixels. See how my border spaced out? Give my legend a little room to breathe. I'm gonna do the same thing for the background. I like to put in my numbers and then hit the enter button. That's just how I do things. And it spaces it out. All right. Obviously, my color ain't quite where I want it to be with my, it's somewhere in there. It's one of these anyways, but for right now, we'll just keep it to that right there. We won't get into the nitty-gritty of it. So there's my legend. I want to clean it up a little bit. I got the stands in there twice. I'm going to clean this thing up. I'm going to go back to this main, this first button right here. Click on show properties, and I'm going to turn some things on and off right here. Show group layer name, turn that off. Show layer name, perfect. And then I'm pretty happy with that. You know, play around, see if there's anything. Property boundary, I got my stands down there. I think that looks good to me. Go ahead and close it. Then I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to move it around. One thing you can do if you want to fine tune how you move it is when you select it, you can hold the control button on your keyboard and use the up and down, left and right arrows to adjust it very finely, like this. and then you're done. And there's my map. Now what I want to do, you can also turn layers on and off right here that you don't want to show up in your legend. But I think we're all good. Now let's go ahead and let's export this thing to a PDF. To do that, pretty simple. Go to Share. I can export to a PDF by clicking this layout button, or I can print directly from this map. Let's just go ahead and export. I can choose right here. If I wanted to ever do a JPEG for a stewardship plan, I could do that. But I'll just go do PDF. We'll go John Doe property. Export. And there you go. There's my map. And that's it. A lot of it's pretty straightforward. The trick is just to figure out where everything is at. So
Do it right, be strong and believe, do it right, you have all that you need, do it right, with everything that you do it right, now it's all on you. It takes the right people to do things right, so keep that in mind and don't lose sight. Stay customer focused and be a team player. Your ideas are good, so feel free to share. Set your goals high, see the sky's the limit. It's nothing but a game, so go out and win it. Be a team leader and be proactive. Don't be afraid to work a little magic. We all represent the Georgia forestry, so it's all on you and it's all on me to save our future and save our trees. Leave our children with something to see. Believe me when I say it's so easy to do.